Highland City, the election is coming up for City Council, and I'm sitting here at Fizz, nighttime version, with Tim Ball. Tim, thanks for stopping by.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
The race is on. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and how is it that you ended up here in Highland?
I grew up in Southern California, about 20 minutes from Disneyland, in a place called Diamond Bar. Interestingly enough, there's a whole Diamond Bar community in Utah County.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot of people have moved here for the same reason that we moved here. And that is, we found a jewel in the middle of what appears to be chaos.
Yeah.
Highland is Highland because of the open spaces, the low density, the country feel, yet we're very close to amenities such as world-class healthcare, transportation corridors, shopping, schools, but we still are able to retain and maintain that country feel. And that's why I'm here, because I believe in the Highland, the general plan, which is exactly that. Highland's a bedroom community, and we want to maintain that country feel forever. And that's why we moved here, and that's what I'm going to fight for.
Excellent. Tell me a little bit about your family and what it is that you do.
I'm married. My wife, Natalie, we've been married for 20 years, coming up rapidly on 21. We have 4 children, ages 17, 14, 12, and 10. Keeps me very busy. An interesting thing that really helps keep me informed is that I have 4 kids in 3 different schools. So they're in Ridgeline, Timberline, and Lone Peak. And so I kind of have the pulse on everything going on in school and the activities, and it's great. It's a great time to be in Highland and to raise a family.
Now, you've been serving on the Planning Commission. How long have you been on that?
A little over a year. I was appointed by Mayor Mann, and I've really enjoyed that time. But more importantly, I think, is it's given me a lot of experience. So I can hit the ground running if I am honored to be elected. I can hit the ground running, and with that experience, really represent well my friends and neighbors.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know what the Planning Commission does. Just briefly, what is it that the Planning Commission does? How does that relate to the City Council?
We do much of what the City Council does, in a sense. Developers, etc., will come to us with land use issues such as zoning and variances to zoning for developments in both residential and commercial. And we will we'll hear everything, we'll study it out, and then we'll make recommendations to the City Council. And the City Council actually has the teeth, and they will take the vote, make the votes, and effectuate whatever change that they see fit, or prevent a change.
Right. They don't have to do what the Planning Commission does, but they do look to the Planning Commission to guide and direct them and kind of vet these issues, right?
Exactly.
All right. Tell me about some of the other issues that you think Highland residents should be aware of and should be a part of their consideration in this campaign.
There are actually a lot of really important issues. Highland is built out about 75%, which means 25% left of the city to develop, non-commercial development, such as residential development. And so it's very important that we make prudent decisions. And there's a lot of corollaries to this one issue of zoning. And those that know me know that I'm a big zoning person, and adhering to the law, adhering to the zoning statutes that are consistent with the general plan. So if we overbuild, that's going to put even more of a burden on our infrastructure. One corollary would be the water situation. We live basically in a desert.
Yeah.
I think we have the second lightest rainfall in the country out of all 50 states, number 2 in the wrong direction.
Right.
So water is a really important consideration. I think I heard a statistic that we are at 75% build out. We're already using 100% of the water that was allotted for our city.
Yeah. So every new house that comes in, there really isn't water that is designated for that.
At our current usage.
At our current.
So we have to make some serious decisions. And I'm really big on getting feedback from citizens, my neighbors, my friends, and I plan on doing cottage meetings periodically in different parts of the city, and really kind of putting my ear to the tracks and listening and understanding what the concerns are of the citizens of Highland. And water is a big issue. I mean, next to zoning, I've been asked about water a lot, and I've knocked on hundreds of doors in different neighborhoods, gone to numerous cottage meetings, and that's a big issue.
Yeah.
And so we have to make decisions such as, are we going to adhere to the general plan? If we do so and do residential, large lots, low density development, which I plan on vigorously defending, then that will put less of a burden on the water situation. If we don't, and we don't kind of dial back our usage voluntarily, then we'll be forced to take other measures. So I greatly favor voluntary cutbacks, and I think everyone loves the city, and I think everyone will do the right thing.
I think a lot of people aren't aware that they're overwatering and really what the situation is.
I don't think they're aware of it either. And I think, for example, I'll give you a really good example. I was knocking on doors 2 nights ago, and I ran into a fascinating lady who's a landscape engineer, but she's also an expert in water usage and water conservation when it comes to landscaping. And she said, I'm an asset. I've volunteered to go to address groups of people, and it just hasn't happened. And I said, can I have your business card? And she said, yes. She wants to teach us about, I think it's pronounced xeriscaping. Everyone thinks it's zeroscaping.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But it's actually xeriscaping, and it has to do with utilizing indigenous and native plants in order to minimize water consumption. And and I looked at her yard that she just put in it, and it's beautiful with very little grass.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really nice. It didn't look like some freaky desertscape or a moonscape.
Right.
It looked really nice. And so I'm going to utilize the resources we have in the community, not to get sidetracked.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much talent in Highland from their technology sector. We have a lot of CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, CTOs, all kinds of talent that we can utilize in different capacities. One would be a committee that particular lady I mentioned could be part of. And we could talk about appropriate ways to save water through landscaping. I think we should have a technology and development committee. And these are all volunteer positions. And they could talk about upgrading infrastructure and ways we could partner with a lot of the tech companies that are just right in our backyard and help us perhaps get faster internet speeds and all kinds of different things that we can do with technology. And then potentially a business development group. We have some commercial space left, and I know a lot of people want to develop the commercial areas and minimize the burden on our infrastructure and maximize the amount of money we can capture through taxes. And so perhaps a committee could be formed with business leaders that live in Highland, and they can determine which businesses would be ideal and optimal to accomplish just that with minimal effect on us.
What's your thoughts on open space?
Open space and trails are part of what makes Highland Highland, and it makes it a community because a lot of them will interconnect different parts of the city. And I see my neighbors, I see them enjoying the trails with their families, taking walks on Sundays, and really taking advantage of what Highland has to offer. That being said, I think we need to develop a plan that is equitable and fair to everyone. I'm in an open space area, and I don't mind paying my $20 a month. If someone lives in a non-open space area, I'm not sure that they need to pay that $20. But we need to figure out what's fair. But we also need to do something else. I work in basically the data field. I work in IoT, Internet of Things. And it has to do with using machines to capture data and put that data in meaningful formats so that people can make intelligent, informed decisions based on fact and data. And I want to do that for Highland. What I'd like to do is we've already done one study, but perhaps augment that study about parks and what we need to do to make more of our parks usable. And then take that data and share it with everyone, and let's all make a decision, because we're all in this together. And go to people and say, look, this park is not usable as a city park or a community park because it lacks restroom facilities, it lacks a pavilion, it lacks areas for soccer teams to practice, etc. If we do this, it's going to cost this much. If we maintain it, it's going to cost this much. And make a presentation and say, what are we willing to do? Are we willing to donate our time? Are we willing to donate funds? Are we willing to have a fee? What are we willing to do? And if we're not, it's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we can put our money towards something else.
Right.
But we need to determine which is a community park and which is a neighborhood park.
Right.
and then treat those accordingly and make it fair and equitable for everyone.
How is it that you decided to run for city council? What brought you to that decision?
I decided to run for city council because prior to my appointment to the Planning Commission, I was very involved in community affairs. And I have attended more city council meetings over the last 3 years than anyone, I think, with the exception of those on the city council. I've been to 34, potentially 35 in the past 3 years. So I really have a good feel of what's going on. And I saw the city council make, I think they're all great men and women, but occasionally they take a direction that I think is contrary to the best interests of the people of Highland. For example, some high density developments that were approved, and they were kind of a head scratcher.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand why if we already have burdens on our infrastructure. And I brought that up and made my point vigorously in front of the city council. And they did it anyway.
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, this is not good for the citizenry. So
Right.
what am I going to do about it?
Right.
So I was appointed to the Planning Commission. And then I thought, I just have to run for city council in order to ensure that we maintain our standard of living, our way of life, and keep the feel of Highland and the spirit of Highland alive. And that's the reason that we all moved here.
Why should residents consider you for city council?
Because I think I'm really good, I have a good analytical mind on one side where I can take facts and information and apply that and make really good, strong decisions. But on the other end, I'm very empathetic. I listen to people. I know a lot of complaints I've heard is that people feel that the city fathers or those representing them don't really listen, and they feel frustrated. And so I'm empathetic, I listen, and I take their opinions into consideration and kind of combine that with my data side, and I think I can come up with some really good solutions for Highland. I feel that I need to go in with everyone knowing who I am and what I stand for. I can't hide facts, I can't hide who I am. Everyone knows what I feel about development and density, open spaces, and keeping Highland. And it would be unfair to people if I tried to hide any controversial view I might have.
Yeah.
It's their vote, it's a right to vote, and they need to know who and what they're voting for and what I believe in.
Right.
They need a reasonable expectation that if I say X, Y, and Z, when I get into office, if I get into office, then I will honor those commitments that I've made to them. But I need to listen also. For example, I went to a cottage meeting about the east-west corridor, and some people were talking about traffic mitigation. I don't want to go into all the particulars, but I came away with the same point of view. We need the east-west corridor for many reasons, but I came away with a different view, and I was influenced by some of the things that they mentioned about traffic and speed mitigation. So I didn't change my point of view, but it's a little bit tweaked in a sense, taking into consideration their concerns, which were very, very valid.
Now, tell me about working with the rest of the city council. And in this race, there are 3 people who are going to be voted in. And so that will be the majority of the city council. How do you see yourself working with other people?
So I've lived in a lot of different places under a lot of different circumstances. And I've lived in big cities. I've lived in Los Angeles, Seattle. I've lived in South America, in Caracas and Bogota. And I've lived in Milan, Italy, and a lot of places. And I understand what high density can do. I understand what haphazard planning can do. And believe me, we don't want it.
Yeah.
And we want a city that grows in a responsible and measured way in accordance with the general plan. Now, that being said, that same experience that I've had has given me the opportunity to work with a lot of people from a lot of cultures and a lot of backgrounds, and I've learned to get along with just about everyone. You can have disagree. You know, it reminds me of that movie Bohemian Rhapsody, where, I don't know if you remember, where they had huge success, and then Freddie Mercury, the singer, was lured away by big money to do a solo album. He came back to the band and begged them to take him back.
Yeah.
And he said, well, there was good news and bad news. He goes, well, they said, well, what was the What was the good news? They did exactly what I told them to do for my record. And they said, what's the bad news? And he said, they did exactly what I told them to
Right.
for my record.
Yeah.
And he said it was terrible.
Yeah.
Because as a unit, we can disagree, but if we disagree on an intelligent level, hear each other out, we can come and make some great decisions, and we can come together and really maintain the quality of life that we've all come to expect. And we can do so in a respectful way, but also standing up for what we believe in. And I just thought that comment or that scene from the movie was great, because what it represented was when people come together and are passionate about certain things, the result can be beautiful. And in their case, music, and in our case, the city of Highland.
Excellent. Well, good luck to you, Tim.
I
Appreciate your
appreciate
stopping
it.
by.
Thanks for
you.
your time.